I was in the cell case with Gypsy before she was removed for her safety reasons. I don't know, but the story she told in jail, she was very proud about what she did to her mother, and now reading her book, she's all sad and resentful for it, but she was all game for it in prison.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard's release from prison was met with mixed reactions, but now, a bombshell revelation from one of her former cellmates is reigniting the debate. What you're about to hear could shake up everything you thought you knew about her. This isn't just about her past actions. It's about what she stands for and why some believe she's still a danger to society. And here's the kicker. It seems the authorities might have overlooked critical warning signs. So, how did this all come to light? One of Gypsy Rose's former cellmates has dropped some shocking claims. And if what she says is true, it could seriously call into question whether Gypsy should have been released from prison. Allegedly, what she did, what she stands for, and what this cellmate revealed all point to her being a potential danger to society. It's disheartening that the authorities didn't seem to view it that way. But before we dive into the gritty details, let's backtrack and unpack what happened. Shout out to Lauren Cherie for capturing all of this drama during a TikTok live. She screen recorded it and shared the juicy details on her account. This new information has sparked a firestorm of controversy, leaving everyone questioning whether justice was truly served.
The prison story Gypsy Rose does not want you to hear. This is all alleged. I'm going to start off with a trigger warning because I'm going to play a clip that describes a story that it briefly includes a mother who unalived her own child. So Gypsy Rose is at lunch one day sitting with other inmates and casually brings up that there's been an inmate transferred over to her pod that is in there for unaliving her child. Allegedly made a comment stating the child deserved it because the mother did not want the child. I'm going to play the clip now, and again, trigger warning if this is something you may be sensitive to. There's a brief mention of just who the mother is, not the crime. It does not go into detail about that.
Again, I was in jail for attempted murder of my ex-fiance. I was in the cell case with Gypsy before she was removed for her safety reasons. So, I don't know, but the story she told in jail, she was very proud about what she did to her mother, and now reading her book, she's all sad and resentful for it, but she was all game for it in prison. She got her ass beat up during lunchtime because she was talking about how one of the girls who was put into her squad was there for attempted murder of her child. And she was sitting there saying how that child deserved it because the mom didn't want the child.
Whoa, okay, we need to unpack this because that's a wild ride. Wow, talking about a mother unaliving her child and justifying it, that's going to trigger emotions for anyone. It's clear that in a place like prison, where every action and word is scrutinized, comments like those are bound to escalate tensions. But first off, let's just talk about the sheer intensity of being in jail for attempted murder. That alone sets the stage for a lot of tension. Then add in the fact that this person claims to have been in the same cell block as Gypsy, a figure so controversial and layered. That's already stirring the pot for maximum intrigue. The first thing that jumps out is Gypsy allegedly being proud of her actions while in jail. That's such a stark contrast to the remorseful tone in her book and public persona now. It raises a huge question. Was that a survival tactic, or is this a deeper reflection of her mindset? Honestly, if someone's boasting about something like that in such a high-stakes environment, it's hard not to wonder if they're playing some kind of game to fit in. Now, the lunchtime fight. That's another level. The idea that Gypsy was so outspoken that it led to her getting into trouble with other inmates over her opinions. Wow.
She's about to have a baby. You can be all for abortion, but this mother physically, strangled her daughter to death. And that's not a way that you should be promoting anything.
No.
That baby didn't deserve that. You, as a 20-something-year-old, didn't deserve to take your mother's life either. You built up a year and a half's worth of evidence. You could have gone to the cops. No, she completely set up Nick. And Like me and like 2 other inmates told her we'd have more respect for her if she said the truth. That you committed your mom's crime, and that's what you're here for. And she would start to cry. And I'm sorry. You crying in prison shows everybody that you're guilty for what you did.
Part about people calling her out for not owning her crime is fascinating because it feels like a recurring theme. People respect honesty, even in the worst situations. The claim that she broke down crying after being confronted adds a layer of vulnerability, but also guilt. Crying in prison, as mentioned, is seen as a sign of weakness or admission of guilt, which only compounds the tension. This story really highlights the complexities of Gypsy's narrative. Is she a victim, a manipulator, or a mix of both? Let me know what you think. Does this change your perspective on her story?
So the person speaking in this live is a former prison mate of Gypsy Rose's. And like she conveys, Gypsy Rose is about to be a mother, but yet thinks there's no problem with making a comment like that. Allegedly. I tried to sit here and write something out that would be impactful and meaningful, but I really have no words. Other than how a lot of people, including myself, are worried that this woman who's already a convicted unaliver is about to be a mother. And like Gypsy said, she's not going to be on parole forever. She is not going to be under supervision forever. Nobody in her family thought this was a good idea to begin with for a reason. I just really hope that CPS is really keeping a watchful eye on her and we can trust in them more than we can't trust in parole. But again, this is alleged. This was a hard one, and I'm at a loss. What are your guys' thoughts?
Gypsy Rose's story has always been a roller coaster of controversy, but the more we uncover, the more her perspective raises eyebrows. From what I've seen and heard about her, Gypsy doesn't seem to have much faith in letting authorities handle difficult situations. Take, for example, her apparent support for a woman contemplating ending her own child's life, despite the many other options available, like adoption, where countless families would be thrilled to provide a loving home. Instead, Gypsy's stance allegedly boiled down to, if you don't want them, just unalive them, eerily echoing what she did to her own mother.
I got some serious secondhand embarrassment reading Gypsy Rose's book. Can you imagine how Rod feels reading that book? How embarrassed he must feel and yet has to go around and act like he's so proud of his daughter? God. Like, what do you even say? Like, your daughter traded her kitty for some biscuits and gravy. Your daughter bathed in some condiments. The pride, I got secondhand embarrassment reading that. I can't imagine how Rod has got to be feeling right now, and he can't even show it.
Let's not forget, Gypsy had numerous ways to escape her mother's grasp. Calling 911 would have been the most straightforward. Instead, she chose to spend years manipulating Nick into carrying out the crime for her. And when the dust settled, she blamed him, saying he should have been the one to call the authorities. Yet, in the same breath, she claimed she wouldn't be in prison if she had met a real man who could have helped her. Gypsy's take, she takes some responsibility for her actions, but insists Nick's role was bigger. Then there's her ex-cellmate's claim that Gypsy seemed proud of her actions, an allegation that aligns with the tattoos Gypsy got after the crime. One tattoo, allegedly matching the spot where her mother was stabbed, and another rumored to spell out her mother's name, have been described as trophies of her crime. While Gypsy's public demeanor these days is contrite and remorseful, many believe it's all an act, and she remains a deeply dangerous individual. What do you think about Gypsy Rose's actions and her current narrative? And if you thought that was the wildest revelation, think again. Gypsy's epilogue is packed with eyebrow-raising insights, including her belief that there's no villain in her story, not even herself. That's right, Gypsy insists the narrative of her life defies the simplistic labels of heroes and villains, a claim that's sure to spark heated debates. Epilogue: A Day of Balance. June 10th, 2024. Today marks the 9-year anniversary of the unaliving of my mother, Claudine Dee Blanchard. It is the first time I commemorate this solemn day outside of prison walls. This year, I remember the events of that early morning as a free woman. For each of the past 8 years, on every June 10th, I experienced my grief and guilt the same way, with a wave of darkness hovering over me, a shadowy reminder that I would never again have a mother. I would try to connect with my mother wherever she is, hopefully heaven. Usually with my head under the blanket, hiding from the world, I prayed. I spoke to her out loud. I squeezed my eyes tight and concentrated, hoping to make a connection just one more time, so I could tell her how much I missed her and that I was sorry. Year after year, no matter how hard I tried, I never felt her presence in the way many people say they do after their loved ones pass away. But this June 10th is different. On this June 10th, I myself am a mother-to-be. I'm pregnant. I have filed for a divorce from Ryan Anderson, and I got back together with my first fiancé, Ken. He's moved to New Orleans full-time as we gear up to welcome our baby in January 2025. When the OB/GYN's office called to schedule my first sonogram, where Ken and I would see our baby for the first time and hear the precious heartbeat, they suggested we do it on Monday, June 10th. I do not think this is a coincidence. Whether it is a message, a sign of the balance of the universe, or all three, what had been a date defined by scandal, horror, and sadness beyond comprehension has now become a day of excitement, joy, and celebration of life itself. With one phone call and a calendar appointment, a day of darkness has been transformed into a day of light. The shadowy wave is no longer hovering over me. I am able to ride it. I believe God rights wrongs. I believe in balance. Regardless of everything that my mother and I went through with each other, what I did to her and what she did to me, I'm now carrying her grandchild. Later today, when I see my baby on the doctor's monitor, I will wish that my mom was here for this. Maybe this means she is. June 10th no longer has to mark an ending, but a beginning. On future June 10ths, I will continue to remember the sadness of my last moments with my mother. But now, it'll also be the day I experience the miracle of my first moments with my baby. I like to think that my mother is telling me she wants me to move on with my life, that she forgives me. What I will do on this anniversary is her way of helping me change the way I think of myself every June 10th. Maybe now, with my freedom, we can both be released from our purgatories. Maybe now she can be free too. She always said we were two sides of the same penny. Those words that used to haunt me, Gypsy will never be happy. She will never be free. Have been once and for all put to rest. Nothing will ever erase the fact that I helped take a life, but all the same, nothing will mar my joy at the incredibly good fortune that I'm now helping give life. Balance is a beautiful force of nature. As I write this, I'm about at the halfway mark of my year of release from Chillicothe Correctional Center. Perfect timing to notice how balance in my life is regulating the chaos that once was. 6 months have gone by as quickly as a football season, and I can say with full confidence that despite what you might have seen or read about me, I've managed to hold on to the ball more than I fumbled it. In just 6 months, I've publicly gone from newlywed to divorced, from Missourian to Louisianan, from brunette to blonde, from inmate to reality star, from an educator to a published author to a wife, twice. Y'all, in the past 6 months, I've also managed to make a lifetime of mistakes, be called a gazillion names, and sneak in some necessary smart decisions. I've misused social media, given too much credence to critics and haters, and done and said things I regret. I was free for the first time, playing catch up with technology, current events, even dating, sort of like a foal lifting herself upon wobbly legs. It took me a minute to find my footing. Initially, even though I was no longer behind prison walls of barbed wire, I still felt a sense of being trapped by my negative image because of what I'm notorious for. It's been a constant struggle trying to break free from a title that was put on me, especially while trying to balance who I really am in a world I've never ever lived in. Not for one day. It took 6 months to discover that I can't please everybody, so I stopped. It is much better to be myself than to try to conform to what everybody wants me to be. I feel like people keep trying to put me in a box of either victim or murderer. But I'm not a hero. I'm not a villain either. I don't think that there is any villain in this story. After you learn more of my mother's backstory and read about the childhood abuse and molestation she endured, you see that she didn't have much of a start in life either. She isn't black and white. It is not victim or perpetrator. My mom was both. I am both. Balance makes us human. I chose to write this memoir because I wanted to provide some more background to the story you thought you already knew. I wanted to take my story out of the sole hands of Hollywood and tip the scale a bit more evenly with my personal lived experience. I also wrote it as part of my legacy. And now, I will add to my past story of being a daughter and my future story of being a mother. It'll be a challenge to have difficult conversations with my child about what transpired before we became our own family. But shame is not a burden to me now. I know when the time comes for questions, I will give my child truthful answers, beginning with this book. There were only lies between my mother and me. Now, I only have truth to give. In a stunning twist, she speculates that her late mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, has forgiven her for the crime that shocked the world. Why? It all comes down to a chilling coincidence. The 9th anniversary of Dee Dee's death coincided with the day Gypsy received her first sonogram for the baby she's expecting with her fiancé, Ken Orker. Gypsy described the moment as a sign from her mother, saying, "I like to think she's telling me to move on with my life, that she forgives me." But Gypsy didn't stop there. She opened up about how this anniversary serves as a turning point in her life, a way to rewrite the meaning of June 10th. Maybe now, with my freedom, we can both be released from our purgatories. Maybe now she can be free too, Gypsy reflected. She even likened their relationship to two sides of the same penny, hinting at the complex and inseparable bond they shared even in death. To my unborn baby. When you're one day ready to read your mama's story and learn of your ancestry, I want you to know something important. Every choice that I have made in my life, whether it be wrong or right, has been with the hope of having you.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard said that she wrote her recent book for her daughter, to tell her daughter her impactful story. Well, now she's backtracking, of course, because the book's been released and we've read it. Inside of this book, several disturbing details are shared across all aspects, and many sources have come forward, including those who have served time with Gypsy Rose in prison, and said that they're nothing but complete lies. Inside of Gypsy Rose Blanchard's book, she brags about trading intimate favors for soggy jail biscuits and gravy. In addition to this, there are several other disturbing, and some would argue unnecessary, details that are written within this memoir. Now many are questioning why Gypsy Rose Blanchard would expose her daughter to these disturbing details. And her response is she will only allow her daughter to read the book when she turns 18 and is a grown woman. Now many people are challenging the credibility of Gypsy Rose Blanchard's book. Many false facts have been pointed out. In addition to that, contradictions. And one point that's been made is Gypsy Rose has claimed multiple times that she started writing this book while she was in prison. Well, if she actually wrote the book, then why did she need two co-authors to write it for her? As someone who's read the book, there are several disturbing details that I couldn't imagine someone would put in a memoir. In addition to that, the fact that these disturbing details probably aren't even true further emphasizes the disturbingness of this book. Have you read the book? Have you heard about the book? And what do you think?
All right, this one's a real head-turner. Among everything we've seen or heard recently, one particular statement from her stood out like a flashing red light. It was her closing remark. And wow, it left a lot of us speechless. She claimed that every single thing she's done, good or bad, was in pursuit of having her daughter. Sounds sweet at first, right? But hold on, because when you really unpack it, things take a darker turn. By framing her daughter's very existence as the reason for her own controversial past actions, yep, including her alleged mistreatment of her own mother, it seems like she's shifting the weight of her own choices onto her daughter. Let's call it what it is, a deeply manipulative guilt trip. Think about it. She's essentially saying, I did all of this for you, so you owe me forgiveness and gratitude. Not only is that unfair to her daughter, but it's also a pretty twisted way to justify her own behavior. Accountability, nowhere in sight. Instead, she's using this narrative to deflect criticism and paint herself as the ultimate martyr. Drop your thoughts, and don't forget to check back tomorrow for more updates.